Hello, everyone out there. Good to be back here. So if you remember last time, we read half of the chapter called The Wooden Horse. I'm going to throw up on the screen here the review from last time. So the Greeks had attempted, basically, they built this giant horse, and it's wooden, and they're going to pretend to give it to the Trojans as this gift, kind of like to the goddess Athena. So they're like, we're going to leave, we're going to take off, and they're pretending that they're just running away, like they're scared now, they're going home. But inside that horse, this giant horse, actually hidden in the belly are some major Greek fighters. We're talking Menelaus, Odysseus, Diomedes, and more, right? Now, the Trojans are going to think this is just some gift, but it's really not a gift, right? Because if that horse gets inside of the city, those people inside the belly are going to jump out, open the gates of the city back up. The Greeks are going to sail back, and they're going to try to take down Troy, like literally destroy it. So this is a crazy time we've got going here. So let us see what happens. Let's see if the Trojans believe the story about this horse, this wooden horse, and see if they bring it into their own town. Okay, so let us start it up. From the walls of the citadel, the Trojans saw the smoke of the burning camp billowing up into the sky and the fleet putting out to sea. So the Greeks had basically burned everything that they had left there and then took off on their ships. It seemed like all of them took off, but we know better. They didn't all go. And their hearts lifted, the Trojans' hearts lifted within them, and they opened the gates and went down to the seashore. But they went fully armed in case of a trap, and they sent scouts ahead of them. So let's send some people to make sure everything's cool down there. They found the timber town burning and the whole camp deserted, so everybody had left. And only the chocks and the keel scars above the tide lines to tell where the ships had been, so markings of where the ships had gone up on shore. And they saw the great horse standing tall among the ruins, gleaming with the silken cornstalk color of the new wood. Priam and his nobles gazed at the horse, marveling at its size and beauty, wondering what its purpose might be, and half afraid. And as they stood there, Lycaon, the high priest of Poseidon, came hurrying down from the city, his 2 young sons and a great company of citizens with him. While he was still far off, he shouted to them in warning, "Oh, my friends, leave that thing untouched. Do you think that the Greeks would leave us a gift without treachery in it?" So there's some type of trickery going on. "Either they had left men of their own shut within it, ready to come forth against us at the right time, or there is some evil magic in the creature itself to harm us." And he flung the spear he carried at the horse's rounded belly. As it struck, there came a growling and a ringing from the hollow space within the timbers. And maybe the Trojans would have felt the danger and aided him to hack the thing open then and there. But as that same instant, a knot of warriors came towards them, dragging Sinon in their midst. So this is that Greek that was left behind to kind of try to trick the Trojans a little bit more. They flung him at Priam's feet. "We found this hiding among the reeds," one of them said. "If we put fire to the sole of his feet, maybe he will tell us the secret of this wooden monster." But Sinon let out a howl. "Was there ever a more miserable man than I? First my own people, and now the Trojans both hate me to the death." "Tell us how you earn the hatred of your own people, and how you come to be here when they have gone, and it may be well will cease to hate you," said the old king, and signed to his men to let the captive up. "I will tell you what you asked, Lord King," said Sinon, drawing a deep breath to begin his story. "I was friend and armor-bearer to the chieftain Palamedes, whom the wicked Odysseus slew in secret for the hatred that he bore him. I was filled with wrath or anger, and had not the wisdom to hide it. I talked wildly, and my talk came to Odysseus' ears, so he sought to kill me also. Then Calchas, the soothsayer," he broke off. "But what use to tell all the story? You will not believe it. Stay me or kill me, then. It is what Agamemnon and Odysseus desire. Menelaus would thank you for my head." So he's a pretty good storyteller here. That made the Trojans yet more curious, and Priam bade him to go on. So he told them, weeping and shuddering, that the Greeks had consulted an oracle as to their homeward voyage, And the oracle, this is kind of like a fortune teller, had bidden them to sacrifice one of their number. Woo! Excuse me. To sacrifice one of their number to gain fair winds and calm seas. They had asked Calchas to choose the sacrifice, so somebody they're going to give up or kill, basically. And Calchas had chosen him. So Sinon, he had been bound and held fast while the great horse, which was their peace offering to Athena, was built. And he would have been dead by now if he had not managed to escape and hide among the reeds until the ships had sailed. So he's telling them this story that the Greeks had given this this horse from Athena to the Trojans, and they tied him up like he was going to be sacrificed too, like they were going to basically leave him to die. Sinon told his tale so well that the Trojans believed him and unbound his hands, rejoicing that the great horse threatened no harm to them, but was a peace offering to Athena for the theft of the Palladium. But they had scarcely done so when a terrible thing happened. 2 great sea serpents appeared, heading out of the morning mist toward the shore. Their crimson-crested heads upreared. They've got these red on the middle. Their bodies snake coiling through the water, lashing up the shallows and leaving behind them a wave like a 30-oar galley. So these are massive snake-like creatures. And before anyone could believe what they saw, let alone turn to run from the peril, they were plunging ashore. Sea flame flickering in their eyes, the forked tongues between their gaping jaws hissing and whiplashing to and fro. They flew upon the 2 young sons of Laocoon, flinging their coils about them, and even as their father rushed to the rescue, it was too late. I'm going to show you a picture now of what's happening. Yikes. From the boys' mangled bodies they turned upon him. Before the horrified Trojans could so much as throw a spear, they flung their coils about him, tightening themselves about his throat and body, so that after one dreadful shriek that seemed to tear the skies apart, he could make no sound at all, as the life was crushed out of him. So that looks like Lycaon. I think I'm saying that name right. But it looks like that's him being crushed to death by this serpent creature. Yikes. Then the serpents shook loose their coils and were gone, swifter than any flying spear could follow, across the plain and into the city. The priestess in the temple of Athena saw them come and saw them go across the marble pavement to disappear behind the shield of the goddess's great statue and into some unknown lair behind her feet. Priam and the rest of his company, down by the shore, stood as though stunned about the crushed and shapeless bodies of Lycaon and his sons. It seemed clear to them that the serpents were Athena's wrath or anger against the priest for having cast his spear at her sacred horse. And if she was not to be made yet more angry, the enormous offering must be brought into the city and up to its rightful place in her temple. They lashed ropes to the great horse and laid rollers in front of it like men launching a ship, and took turns, signing among them in long hauling teams. So they're dragging this giant thing. And they dragged the thing rocking and lurching over the rough ground across the plain and up to the Scaean gate. So let me show you this picture now of the horse. You can see the horse is completely done now. It looks pretty nice. It's massive. Woo! In the gateway, people came running to meet them, and boys and maidens set their hands to the hempen ropes and helped to haul, so everybody's pulling. Cassandra, the old king's daughter who had foreknowledge, cried out that the horse would be the death of Troy if they brought it within the gates. But no one listened to her. Maybe you can see her kind of screaming at the top of that tower over there. With shouting and dancing, the singing of praise hymns, the monster horse with its hidden load came lurching on up the last slope and over the rubble that the years of fighting had left there, on between the gate towers and up the steep streets until it stood within the citadel, the high town, in the inner court of the great temple of Athena. All right, so that is it for this chapter. The next chapter, I mean, they kind of give away things, but I'll just tell you, it's called The Fall of Troy. See if it actually is true or not. Okay, so in this past chapter, let's think. A question is going to be, if you were inside that horse when that spear, because Lycaon, he threw that spear and it actually hit somebody, so we don't know who it hit. Could you imagine being in there and a spear goes through that wood and goes into maybe your side or your belly? What would that be like for you? Like, what would you do in that moment if that were you? Yikes. Okay, now here's an interesting one. I want you to have the look of Sinon when you're telling this tale or this fake story. So you got to be convincing. You have to pretend as best you can that you are telling the truth. So I'm going to do Sinon telling the story, the fake story about this horse and so forth. Okay? It's kind of hard to do it still. You know, I was about to try to talk or something. But anyways, you try the face and see how you do it. All right, we will talk next time, and that will be The Fall of Troy. Adios.